Have you ever really thought about the story behind the food on your plate? Well, in this explainer, we're going to uncover a hidden path, one that leads directly from a huge environmental crisis to something a lot of us see every single day.
Okay, so let's just get right to it. It's a question that sounds dramatic, I know, but the answer is shockingly direct. What does a steak have to do with a burning rainforest? As we're about to find out, the connection is way closer and honestly more deliberate than you'd probably ever guess.
So to really connect these dots, we have to start with the rainforest itself. We all know it's in trouble, right? But what's the single biggest reason it's disappearing?
And here it is, laid out in black and white. We hear a lot about logging or mining or other types of farming, but the source material for this is crystal clear. The number one driver, the single biggest cause of all this destruction, is clearing land just to make room for cattle.
Okay, so we've established that cattle ranching is the main problem, but to really get the full picture, you have to try and wrap your head around the sheer scale of this, because it is massive. It's almost hard to even imagine.
40 million hectares. Just let that number sit for a second. That's how much deforested land we're talking about in Brazil alone. To put that in perspective, that's an area roughly the size of Germany, just gone, wiped from the map.
And this is what's left behind. That incredibly vibrant, complex ecosystem that was the rainforest, it's been replaced by something much simpler, and ecologically a whole lot poorer, just degraded grassland. And its main purpose? Raising cattle. But wait a minute. How does beef from illegally cleared land end up in our legal global supply chains? Well, this is where the story takes a turn and reveals a hidden system. A pretty dirty secret designed to hide the truth.
The process actually has a name: cattle laundering. And that name is no accident. You know how money laundering washes dirty money to make it look clean? Well, this does the exact same thing, but for livestock. It takes illegally raised cattle and gives them a totally clean, legitimate backstory.
So how in the world does it work? Well, it's actually a pretty simple three-step shuffle. Step 1, the cattle are raised on that illegally cleared land we just talked about. Then, here's the trick, the wash. Step 2, they're sold to a licensed, totally clean ranch. This basically erases their legal past. And finally, step 3, from that legal farm, they just slide right into the supply chains of major meat companies. Their real origins? Completely hidden.
And you might be thinking this is a small, fringe problem. It's not. Just look at this staggering estimate. In a huge region like Brazil's Pará state, it's believed that half, literally half, of all the livestock comes from these illegally cleared areas. That just shows you how systemic and widespread this really is.
The impact of this hidden system, it goes so much further than just the trees. It kicks off this whole domino effect of environmental and social damage that is just devastating.
And the consequences are just brutal. First, when you clear a forest, you release massive amounts of stored carbon, which just pours gasoline on the fire of climate change. Then you have the irreversible loss of biodiversity and animal habitats. This also leads to violence, as indigenous communities are often forcibly pushed off their land. And the final domino to fall? The Earth's ability to absorb CO2. Our planet's very lungs gets weak. And here's the real kicker. The cycle actually feeds itself. A huge chunk of that same cleared land is then used to grow soy. And what do you think that soy is used for? A lot of it gets turned into feed for the very same cattle industry that drove the deforestation to begin with. It's this vicious, self-perpetuating loop.
So, when you follow this path, all the way from a burning forest through this laundering scheme and into a global supply chain, you kind of have to stop and ask a pretty simple question. What is really at stake here?
So, what's the bottom line? What this all means is that there is a hidden, deliberate system that creates an unbroken line straight from the food on our plates to the destruction of one of the most vital ecosystems on the entire planet. Turns out, the distance from the rainforest to the ranch is a lot shorter than we think.
All of this leaves us with one final and pretty sobering thought. This whole process happens thousands of miles away, and it's all hidden behind these complex supply chains and intentional deception. So it really makes you wonder, when a forest falls silent, is anyone out there even listening?